Welcome, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today I'm doing a public live. It's round two of Ask Me Any Questions you have about profiling, profilers, and crimes. And I'm mostly doing this because A, I was requested to do it again after the first time, and B, I just got back from Hawaii yesterday, and I'm totally discombobulated, and I didn't want to do a show I had to do a lot of research for, so because I was going to sleep, and I did. And so now I'm here and I'm back in Maryland. And I feel like I'm in a different universe right now. It's just very weird to be back after 3 months in Hawaii. So, but I'm glad everybody is here. And number one question I knew this question was going to come up. How is Mac? For all of you who are not regulars for Patreon, because most of my live shows are patron only, let me just show you just for a sec before I get started. So yes, most of my shows are, whoa, patron only. I don't have a green screen up. Well, look, I don't have a green screen behind me. So now this is a green screen. There, look, there's my son through the actual, get my hand down. I've never used this without a green screen. So anyway, it's going to be a little weird. So point quickly, yes, if you'd like to, if you'd like to come to the live shows every week, there are two. There's one on the weekend, which is the case show, and there's one during the week that is like this. It's a hangout where people can ask me questions. People send in, hey, can you talk about this crime and that crime? And then I do that for a couple hours, and we all have a good time. It's $5 a month. It's just one level. There's nothing. So if you want to join that, it'd be great. It supports this educational channel. If you don't want to do that, don't worry. All of my shows do go public after they're done. There's nothing hidden. So please do subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. All right, let me get this off from behind me because it's pretty funny. Let me show my son again. Let's see if he comes up here again. Where are you, son? Wait. There you are. Anyway, there he is. There's my two kids, my two sons, my daughter. And those are my pastel artworks. So anyway, and they actually came out looking like my kids. So I was kind of thrilled about that. So anyway, so that's what normally we have a patron only. But this is a public live so that anybody out there who would like to ask a question about profiling, profilers, crimes, anything that pops into your mind, I'll try to answer. But the reason I just mentioned that was because somebody was asking me about Mac the cat. Mac the cat has been my feral cat. If you're not a patron, you don't know this. I have a feral cat who, I don't know how many years it's been now, 2 or 3 years now. I can't even remember now. But he came in my cat door after my cat had died. I left the cat door open, and he came in and ate some cat food that I put out for my daughter's cat. And then I started sort of bringing the cat food further and further from the door till eventually it was in my bedroom. So this feral cat eventually came into my bedroom to eat. And after a couple of years, I actually got him to stand on my lap and eat and lick food off my hand, although Mac will never let me actually pet him because he's truly a feral cat. Well, anyway, I went away for 3 months, and I'm like, what is going to happen during those 3 months? So I have a granddaughter come in once a week. She would refill the big dry food bowl. She put down 1 can of cat food, wet cat food, and then fill up the water bowl. And I had a cat camera that's right behind me, and it would film him coming and going. And for 3 months, he came and went and ate his food and slept in his little cat bed. And then it was getting kind of funny because he would start showing up when it's sunlight or staying until 10 in the morning, which he never did when I was here. So it was like he began to think this was just his house. So the question was, when I came back from Hawaii, which was yesterday, what would his reaction be? Would he be freaked out because I haven't been around for 3 months? Or what would he do? So anyway, so last night I took away the big food bowl. I left my door to the bedroom open, and he rolled in, just walked into my bedroom, and he ate the food next to my bed, and he sat down on the floor. So there he is. And today I was just getting ready for the show, and it's still daylight out, and he all of a sudden I walked out in the living room area, and there he was just standing there. I'm like, you're early. And he looked a little concerned. So anyway, he went underneath the dining table. I put some wet food in my hand, and he ate that. And then I put the other food down, and there he is eating in my kitchen. So I'm going to say Mac is okay. He's okay with me returning home. So he didn't throw me out. So anyway, so there he is, Mac the cat. Okay, so let me get to the questions. Okay, so beautiful cat. Well, he's a little scuzzy because he's a pretty cat, but he comes sometimes with a little roughness around him because he's out in the wild. And but he's it's fun. I like that you profiled the behavior of the cat. Well, it was interesting to watch because, I mean, he's totally a feral cat. He doesn't meow. When he first came in, he would come in like crawling on the floor. It took him a long time for me to get him close to me. So I was trying to be like the Diane Fossey of the feral cat world and see if I could eventually get him to come near me and be, he's still, he won't let me touch him. He will not let me pet him. If I try that, he hisses at me, but it's quite fun. So yeah, it's been interesting. So where was it? Okay, where's the question? Okay, here. Okay, let me get to the questions. Hi, Nina. What kind of classes, training did you have to learn and prepare for your career? All right, so this is a question that I get a lot because most everybody thinks you have to go through the FBI to become a profiler. And in reality, most people who go into the FBI never become profilers. Even if they want to become profilers, they're not going to become profilers because they joined the FBI. They'll become FBI, I'm sorry, just on my voice. They will become FBI agents, in which case they will do all kinds of different work, live in all kinds of different places around the US, but they will not be part of the behavioral science unit. That, at the most part, ever has like 9 people in it. It's a very small unit. And to get there, you have to, at some point, theoretically, maybe get a master's in psychology or something. They don't go to profiling school to become profilers. So this is where people seem to think there's this big school of profiling, even in the FBI, and there is not. So people get degrees in various things, and somehow they end up in the behavioral science unit. And then they, of course, have a similar way of profiling because of the history of FBI profiling, which I do not agree with at all. There's also a big discussion over the difference between inductive and deductive, which oddly seems to almost have flipped over the years. But originally, the point was that the FBI did more inductive, which means that they did a lot of studies, which some of the studies are very good, mind you. Some of the research they've done over the years is excellent. But they would take a case and do inductively, like statistically, like it's going to be a white guy who lives with his mother, has a green car and a dog and a knife collection. And I'm looking at the crime scene going, where did you get that from the crime scene? That makes no sense. The crime scene doesn't tell you that. But they were doing things some more, this from all the research, it would be more likely to be this person or more likely to be that person. And a lot of it was simply guesswork or imagination. I've seen some just come up with imaginations about the behavior of this person when it's not proven in the crime scene. Then there's a thing called deductive profiling, which is where you look specifically at the crime scene and you deduce from the crime scene what the person might be, what the behavior might be. But you ought to have something that is very specific from the crime scene. So if you're going to go with race or even gender, or you're going to go with age, or where do you get that from? The crime scene. Now, sometimes there could be literally physical evidence. At other times, it could be behavioral. And one crime scene that I worked was that the man stole a vehicle from a condo complex, from the victim's vehicle. And that complex was a mixture of mostly Caucasian and Hispanic. The area was quite Hispanic. But the car ended up in an African-American section of Washington, D.C. And in that particular area, there really was 100% African-American. So I determined that this guy was most likely Black based on that evidence of where the car ended up. And not, of course, you could be just put in the car there you could be a white guy, just want to blame make it look like, hey, it's a Black guy. And that happens in some cases, which another case I worked, exactly what happened. The white guy that was living near the woman that was murdered took her car and drove it to a Black neighborhood so the police would be misled. But in this particular case, the person destroyed the clutch while they were driving, and it's hard to drive a car with when you can't do a stick. So to me, he wasn't going joyriding because that's too much work when you can't drive the car properly. And B, you don't have to go that far to blame somebody when you can't drive the stupid car. So my feeling was he was going someplace specific, which would be home. And that is exactly what it was. So from that information, I came up with that deduction. And in other cases, I could do certain things about, then I put the profile together. It's based on all of these specific pieces of evidence. And everything I say, I tell the police exactly why I came up with that conclusion. And a lot of FBI profilers, they don't explain where their conclusions came from. And that drives me nuts. It's like, you're going to say, hey, this is what I think, but you don't tell us how you got there. And if you can't tell me how you got there, I'm going to say you guessed. And of course, we all, in a way, all profiling and analysis and theories, they're all theories. So in a sense, they are guessing, but you can guess intelligently, or you can just be guessing. So if you're going to make a guess, come to a determination saying this is the most likely, you should be able to tell the police exactly where you came to that conclusion. Otherwise, your opinion is, quite frankly, just an opinion. You don't even know why the person has an opinion. So I've never been fond of the FBI profiling method, and but doesn't mean there aren't some certain profilers in the FBI who may have changed their methodology and do what I say would be good, the deductive part of it. But you don't just roll into the FBI and become a profiler. So you become an agent, and then if you pursue certain academics or you get in with the right people, you might maybe become a profiler. And again, people think also they watch Criminal Minds, which is a shame. It's criminal that anybody watches that show. But anyway, the concept that some police department, somebody's going to call the FBI and say, hurry up, there's a serial killer out here, and you're going to jump on a fancy plane and fly out. That doesn't happen. FBI does not show up at crime scenes, hardly ever. The only time they show up is when the department gets inundated with media and people harassing them that they're not solving the case. And then finally they'll say, okay, fine, we'll call the FBI in because you're all just a pain in the neck. But they're not showing up at the crime scene. So they're doing what I would do, which is look at photos and all of that, and study the police reports and the autopsy photos and crime scene photos, autopsy photos, the forensics. They'll look at all of that, but they're not there in a fresh scene. So, yeah. So to become a profiler, to your question, you can go through the FBI and somehow get there. They don't even explain what your credentials need to be to become a profiler. Then you have independent profiling, like myself. There are no profiling schools out there. I actually developed the first profiling certificate program in the United States for Excelsior College. There were 5 different courses in forensic pathology and crime scene reconstruction and criminal profiling and psychopathology and serial crimes. There were 5 of them. 15-week program. I used all of the material I had from all my cases and developed this really great program, which people could take, and then they could get a certificate in criminal profiling, first one in the country. And then eventually they decided the program was too hard for students, and so they watered it down and got rid of me. So I myself have a criminal justice degree. And I don't have a certificate for my own program because I made it, so I don't have a certificate from it. What I did was I was a self-study person. I read 400 books, pretty much everything that ever related to the field. I went to seminars, and then I started working with families and got experience. And so I became a self-taught criminal profiler. Some people think that makes me a fraud. I've heard that over and over again. So, if one person thinks that, they think that. I wish there was a proper criminal profiling program, and maybe there has been something new that's popped up, and I'm just not aware of it. But yeah, there would be nice if there were a true criminal profiling program. I've seen some, but they seem to follow the FBI methodologies, and I don't like that. I wish they'd go to the deductive methods, very, very practical. And I'm going to eventually I have a separate channel for that, but I just haven't had the energy to do it yet. So that's the long explanation of that. Okay, let me see some of your other comments. Hold on, I'm getting toasty here. Hold on. Whew. All right, so, Joe Stunner's here. Hi, Joe. Long time no chat. Doing okay. I was doing better in Hawaii, but now I'm here in Maryland, and I'm really sad. Um, One of our students just got back from Hawaii. Ooh, well, the Kona low hit Hawaii, and the worst rain, 50 inches of rain in like a couple weeks. It was absolutely a disaster. Hawaii is a disaster zone right now. Massive flooding, people being evacuated. If you went on a vacation for a week there, it was a bad week to pick. I've been there for 3 months, so it didn't bother me. This is a question: did any case or person ever affect you in a way that genuinely disturbed me? Uh, Disturbed me. Um, I don't know if the disturbed it would be the right question. I mean, this is one of these fields where don't go into the field if you're very soft-hearted to the point that you fall apart. If everything makes you cry, even if it's sad, don't be in this field because you're going to see horrible things. You're going to deal with horrible people, and it's the same reason I tell people don't inundate yourself with true crime crap. I mean, don't obsess about cases. This whole Nancy Guthrie thing has been absolutely appalling to me. Not only for the crappy YouTubers who've been doing live shows all day long, lurking around the Guthrie's relatives' houses like a bunch of freaking stalkers, bothering everybody. But the people who are watching it are obsessing on something. This was one crime that happened. There hasn't been an answer yet, like many, many other crimes that don't have answer. Just go away. And if one day the police arrest somebody or tell you something has happened, then you can look at that and learn something from it. But if you're spending 8 hours a day on basically obsessing over the whole case, oh my God, look, there's somebody dropped a glove here. Oh my God, somebody drove in here. You need to get away from that. You need to get away from your iPad or your computer because it's not healthy. So I've never been one to, generally speaking, obsess, but are there cases that are more frustrating than others? And I would say probably the most frustrating would be the Superbikes case out of South Carolina, where I went down there and worked with the sheriff's department for a week. And I gave them a profile, an analysis of the case, and I identified the most likely suspect. They did not follow through. Then the sheriff came out and claimed on television that I didn't know anything about the case. I'd never been down there, and he lied. And I call him Sheriff Wrong. Anyway, he was indicted for some crimes of his own, and he deserves to be indicted because he's, in my opinion, a criminal. And he eventually arrested a man who was a serial killer, Todd Kohlep, a realtor. He was a serial killer, but then he got him to confess to the Superbikes crimes, which is a mass murder. And I know he didn't. The confession included stuff that wasn't true. And I know he didn't do it because he couldn't even have done it. He did not understand the crime scene. He wasn't there. And yet he took a plea bargain and he got out of the death penalty on the serial crimes to confess to this crime so the sheriff could close it and win the next election. That kind of stuff bothers me. So that's the best. That's the one I could say most. That disturbed me because of all the criminal stuff. Hi, Pat. Love your channel. How do you psychologically protect yourself from gruesome crimes? I don't obsess on them. I understand this is a professional thing. And I also, as I tell people all the time, balance your life out. I have family. I have a granddaughter. I do artwork. I like animals. I like travel. I do stuff that is not all crime related. And I switch from Pat Brown, the regular person, to Pat Brown, the profiler, when I do work. And then I'm in a professional mode, so I can look at crime scene photos and all of that and not, go berserk. And no, I never, ever dream. Some people think, you go to bed and you dream about serial killers and all that stuff. I don't ever dream about that stuff. I have very nice dreams. I dream a lot. I'm a big dreamer, so I dream constantly. But, I'm having a good time in my dreams. I wake up, I'm exhausted. I was busy all night long doing something, visiting with people, going different places, having a nice time. So I never dream about that. I don't watch, for the most part, I don't read anything, stupid serial killer books. I don't watch stupid serial killer movies. I don't waste my time, and I don't watch slasher movies and gore stuff because I think that's sick, and I don't want to see people being murdered. I have seen people being murdered because I've seen videos from the cartels and ISIS, um, and I have seen, of course, tons of gruesome crime scene photos. But that's in a professional sense. It's not in a, oh, let me just hang out for 2 hours and do that. No, I make sure that my life is filled with good things and good people. And therefore, I mean, I know bad things can strike. I mean, I could get murdered one day. My kids could get murdered. I mean, it's a horrifying thought. It's more of, I have more of a fear of just the unluckiness of life sometimes, a car accident, somebody doing something stupid, like the recent young man who died in Barcelona. Go out drinking with your buddies, go out, look at the water, slip on, drown. Nobody murdered him, just went out to have fun and made a stupid choice to go out near the water, which happens quite often with people who are drinking, the bars are near the water. So, I just don't, I don't obsess. But again, you have to have the right personality. If you have a personality that cannot handle looking at photos of murdered children, this is not the field for you, because you shouldn't put yourself through that. And my daughter, who is a detective, has 20 years in the police department, now 21 years in the police department, and has been a homicide detective, along with a sex crimes detective and domestic and also child abuse. The worst cases she ever worked were child abuse cases, because she actually did have to watch videos of children being abused or sexually assaulted. And that really did affect her. And I mean, that's because she was seeing stuff that, luckily for me, I've only seen pictures of dead children. She had to watch children being sexually assaulted in video. That I have never seen, thank God. And during that whole period of time she was in child abuse, she just never watched anything but Disney movies, because it was just, she had to balance her life out then, because she had to get those images out of her mind. So yeah, but for the most part, yeah, just it's a matter of balance. Truly, it's a matter of balance. Let's see. Let's see. Pat doesn't want to be an FBI agent. I couldn't even at the time. If I'd wanted to, I was too old. I was too old to join the police force, because I became a profiler in my 40s. I was too old to join the police force. Too old to join the FBI. Ageism strikes. And it's funny because I think 40 years old, I get the police force part, just because 40 years old, going out on the street and having to do any kind of heavy duty police officer work, patrol officer work. Yeah, I don't think I was capable of that, but I was perfectly capable of being an FBI agent who would work, if I was working in an office doing analysis and all that. And I started 30 years ago. They could have had 30 years. I could have been there for 30 years, but I wasn't allowed to join. So, Ruth, hi, Ruth. Some killers like Kohlberg, seem very interested in their own case and the theories before they were caught. Do you know if you ever no. Whether anybody interacted on my videos? Not that I know of. No, I don't think I've ever had a killer come and watch my shows. But then maybe I wouldn't know. But I have had letters from serial killers. They do like to write profilers, and they're like, "Hey, Pat," like we're buddies, because they serial killers like profilers. That's why they love when the FBI comes to interview them, either because they can tell them these cool stories that the FBI agent goes, really? Okay. Or they like to see if they can freak them out or fool them. It's a playtime for them. And so they like profilers in the sense that, to play with them, but also because they think, like, sometimes they think, oh, she gets me. As much as, she might be analyzing me and trying to get me put away, she understands me. And there is a truth to that. So, yeah. I have Ann Burgess. No, I have never met Ann Burgess. She did some I would say this. I've never met her. I haven't met any. I haven't spent any time with any FBI profilers. FBI does not like me because they do not like independent profilers. And so, yeah. Ann Burgess did some really good work. I want to separate the research work from the profiling work. I think the FBI research work was very interesting. They went and interviewed lots and lots and lots of serial killers. But one of the problems, well, I will say there's one problem there. Serial killers will lie like dogs. They're pathological liars. You can't believe everything they say. So when if they're telling you stuff, it doesn't mean it's true. So you have to be aware that you go, okay, that's why you did that. Oh, it's because of your mother. You don't know if that's true. So unless you have some outside source that can tell you if they're telling you the truth or not, you can't believe it. If they say this was my motive, this is what I got out of it, not always true. Now, I will say that I was find my book. Yeah, this one. Killing for Sport: Inside the Minds of Serial Killers. One of the things that's interesting in this book was there's some statements in this book which still make me laugh to this day. I picked them out specifically. So, like this one from David Bullock. He started messing with the Christmas tree, telling me how nice the Christmas tree was. So I shot him. Now that I believe, I mean, 100% totally like, yeah, you do that. No particular reason, but just felt like shooting him. Ted Bundy did say this, and I think this is true. You feel the last bit of breath leaving their body. You're looking into their eyes. A person in that situation is God. That is very common for all serial killers. They feel like God when they're committing this crime because they're able to choose life or death for this person. So that makes them feel like God. That may be true. Let's see. So a couple other ones. Okay, here, Berkowitz. I must slay a woman for revenge purposes to get back at them all for all the suffering they caused me. I don't know that I believe that. I think that's bull. I think that's a lie. So some of them are true and some of them are not. Let's say David Nielsen. I don't lose sleep over what I've done or have nightmares about it. That one I believe. So you have to sort of understand. You have to understand the mentality of serial killers. That they're not. One of the problems I have with some of the research is that I find it very overly emotional. Some of the FBI stuff and some of the academics get into the minds of serial killers, and they go and it's like they built this whole serial killer world for them, and how they all feel and what they're feeling and what they're getting. And I'm like, dude, maybe it's just fun. So I think it's overdone, and I think it's a stretch to what they're coming up with, because serial killers like to play games. They like to create scenarios. So most serial killers are boring as heck. The majority of their lives are dull. And then when they commit these crimes, they commit them because they're fun. They're moments where they get a thrill, and they get to feel powerful. They want power and control, which they don't have in regular life, at least in some part of their regular life. And they do this because that gives them that moment. We all do things like that. Well, not the murder part, not the rape part, but we do things in our life which give us some sense of power and control or a thrill, right? So people go to bars all the time, pick up somebody, take them back to their place, somebody they just met, and have sex with them. Why? To develop a great relationship? Because they care about the other person? Oh, hell no. They're using that person for a cheap thrill. People are people. Serial killers are not unlike us in their general needs. It's the way they fulfill their general needs which is problematic. That's where we have some level of empathy, we hope. And sometimes people don't have much empathy, so they still do things that are pretty cold and calculated and for their own benefit and nobody else's. But if you have some level of empathy, you don't go out and rape and murder people. But if you have zero empathy and that gives you the kick, well, then you go do that. But humans are human, and they have human needs and desires. It's just when you add psychopathy into the mix, their methodologies of getting that are a little bit different. But so a lot of the research that was done by the FBI is very interesting, but I think a lot of it is often in the minds of the profiler more than it's in the minds of the serial killer. I'm not saying one shouldn't read it and look into it, but then, so there's that aspect. And then when they move it into the profiling world, that's where I start having a problem. To this day, the FBI has not documented how helpful they were in solving any serial crime. So the thing is, if you're going to be profilers, you should be able to at least realistically look at it and say, does it work? But they don't do any evaluation themselves, as far as I know, and they don't let anybody outside do any evaluations, and they don't tell you when their profilers were successful or failed, or they'll say, well, it's 90% accurate. Well, maybe because it's a serial killer and is a male, so you go, the guy's male, check. He's between 20 and 40, most are, check. He hates, has, let's say, he has problems relationship with women, duh, check. So you could be 90% right, but it does no good at all because it's so vague. That so what? So all the rest of the serial killers, how did that help out? Did you get the stuff that was important that could help identify or narrow down the suspect list? That's the question. And if you're not willing to do the work to verify whether your techniques are successful, then they probably aren't, because if they were, you wouldn't be hiding it. So I don't believe in this, that the FBI is particularly successful in criminal profiling. So did they do some very interesting work studying serial killers? Yes. But that's different from being good at profiling. So, yeah. Let's see. With access to criminal stories and forensic files, we're having smarter serial killers. Yes, in the sense that they do watch some of this stuff themselves and understand more about forensics. So at least they should get, be a little smarter these days, like with DNA, and use a condom, dude. Use a condom and don't leave it at the crime scene. Take the condom with you. So the answer to that would be yes, they are learning more, but the advantage that still exists now is that serial killers tend to be arrogant, and there's a learning curve like this. So in the beginning, that's when they're stupid and they make the biggest mistakes. And then once they don't get caught and get confident, then they're pretty good. And then they get careless as time goes on. And that's when they get caught. So, but it would be nice to catch them over here, when you want to catch them quickly. And if they get through a couple, you don't want to keep going. So you want to do something that's going to catch them. CCTV video has done a huge amount for catching them, because it's hard to operate and not be seen in today's world. Although if you're going to go ahead and do stuff like that, perhaps you should be, wear yourself a nice hoodie and a mask, because at least that covers up, like we see with the Nancy Guthrie case. They're now going to put up these billboards, which I think are totally useless and a waste. And they're going to put billboards and show her and say, hey, do you know this guy? It's a guy in a hoodie and a mask. Good luck. So that's not the right question to ask. The real question to ask is, do you know a psychopath who would do something like this and acted weird on that day, like came back to your house and started washing his clothes or burning them in the backyard? That would be more useful. That is not going out there. But showing a guy that's all covered up. Yeah. So, but they are learning, but there's still ways. And fortunately, with some of the methodologies today, the other thing is along with the video, being able to see where cars are going, being able to track the cars. That can be really useful. So it's like there was some helps some, but that some doesn't help them. So yeah. So hopefully the not helping them is better than helping them. Let's see. Hi, Joe. Are there any alleged serial killers who you feel escaped justice, who were never charged or found innocent when tried? Oh my God, tons of them. I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that happens all the time. First of all, because it's hard to identify serial killers, so they just don't get identified. The other thing that happens is they don't link serial killers together very often, even if it's the same guy. They lean too heavy on the signature thing. This was a big FBI thing, which I think was blown out of proportion, that you're going to link crimes by the weird things they do at the crime. Most serial killers don't do anything weird at the crime. They hit somebody over the head, they strangle them and rape them. Duh. I mean, that's the way most of the time it goes down. Now you get somebody who might come through the window and in the night and then tie the person up and rape them. That might be more unique. But is it unique to one guy? No. So you can I look at a lot of that more as MO than I look at it as signatures. Like, this is just a method to manage your crime scene. A true signature would be something like, putting an X on their forehead. Every single victim, you're going to put an X on their forehead. They don't usually do that. So it's kind of hard to sometimes identify. But if you have an area and you have some sexual homicides happening, you should definitely always look at them as a suspected sexual homicide. If you have a woman who is raped and murdered in the bushes, you should think of that as a suspected sexual homicide. If you can link two of them together, it should be considered likely a serial killer, especially if you that's without the DNA. I'm talking about two that are very similar, likely a serial killer that may be connected to both of them. If you have DNA that matches both of them, definitely a serial killer. And I said for years to the FBI, hey, why do you need three? Isn't two enough? Actually, isn't one enough? But okay, at least two. Isn't two enough? Why do you have to wait till three? I mean, how many guys go along and rape and murder two women on different occasions? Serial killers. So yes, a lot of them still get away with it because they're not identified. Some of the crimes aren't identified as serial killer crimes. They don't think of them as one-off crimes until they can prove that there's more crimes linked, and therefore the guy just goes on his merry way committing more crimes. Sometimes the serial killer will move to a different location, which is why geographical profiling often fails. It's because, hey, it's one thing if the guy stays in one spot and then he's killing right around. You can say, oh, he lives right there. But then he loses his job and he moves to his cousin's house in the next state. Well, then you don't even know he's even connect these things are connected, or he's a trucker or whatever. So there's a lot of them that don't get caught. And there's certainly, it's more likely that they won't get caught at all or be identified than it is that they were identified as a serial killer and got off. It's the people who usually get off are usually one-off crimes. The ones that the Innocence Project says they're innocent usually are people who did one crime and then they come back and say, oh, he didn't commit that crime, and when he did. So majority of the time it's a one-off crime that they get released or get off on because it's something that the jury can get confused about. Usually if it's a serial crime, sexual homicide type of crime, it's less, the jury is going to be much more prone to finding them guilty, and they're much more likely to get convicted. So as long as you can catch them, that's the important thing. What offender type is hardest to profile? If we're talking about sexual homicides, I would say if you're gonna go that direction, if that's what you're talking about, somebody like David Berkowitz, son of Sam, as he said to one of his victims, well, I'm not going to rape you, I'm only going to kill you. So what's your beef? But that actually it's a little confusing because when you have somebody, for example, there's a million examples, but if you have a crime where when the police show up to the house, the woman in the house has been brutally raped, she's been tied up, she's been stabbed to death, and her head has been cut off and stuck on it, like Danny Rawling, stick her head over there. You're going to say, that's a serial killer, and you're going to be able to say, this is also a very sadistic serial killer. No joke. But when you get something where you're not even sure it's a serial homicide, when somebody gets shot, first of all, you don't know that it's a serial killer. So son of Sam, David Berkowitz, it wasn't until he shot a whole bunch of them that somebody began to realize he liked using people as target practice. Just shooting them was his big thrill. And he didn't need the sex part. He just wanted to shoot them. And so when there were enough of them, oh, he's a serial killer. But, if you just get somebody who does a crime which doesn't involve as much obvious weird stuff, shall we say, then it gets harder to determine. Is this a serial killer? Isn't this a serial killer? Is this did the boyfriend kill this woman or husband, or was she just was it a robbery gone bad? There could be all kinds of thoughts there. But when you get the sexual component in, that's usually ding ding. It's a serial crime. Let's see. What? Say what? Case on forensic file where the FBI said the perp would own a red pickup truck. Okay. This is exact, and sure enough, okay, I'll tell you how that works. What nonsense. There's no way from any crime scene you're going to know the perp owns a red pickup truck unless you see the red pickup truck driving away from the crime scene. Now, in the sniper case in DC, they thought the guy had a white truck because everybody kept seeing these white trucks. Well, they did, because when you shoot somebody at a gas station, somebody in a white truck who's just work van essentially will suddenly go, oh my God, and he will hit the gas and drive away because he doesn't want to get shot. People go, oh look, the perp is leaving. It's not the guy. So white trucks are very often the most noted truck for a lot of crimes because of the simple fact there's a lot of white work vans out there. But there's no way from a crime scene yet you will know that it's a red truck. Now, the only other way that they would know this, which I've seen done before, is they actually already know the perp before they profile, especially if somebody's writing a book. And in other words, they had inside information, and the police said, do you think this is the guy? And you're like, yeah, I think that's the guy. And then you build your profile on the guy you already think it is, because you pretty much know it is. And you know he's got a red truck, so you say he's got a red truck. John Douglas did this once. I did it a couple times. One of them was, I think it was a trailside killer, I'm not sure, in California. And he supposedly profiled this thing and said the guy would have a stutter. This thing pissed me off so bad. First of all, it drove me nuts. I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, how from that crime scene would you know the guy's got a stutter? The victim's dead. Now, if she were alive, she could say, well, the guy was raping me. He stuttered. Okay, then you can say the guy's a stutter. That's also not brilliant profiling. It's just a fact, right? But he claimed this dead victim on his trail had a stutter. And the claim was because he chose to jump out on a trail and kill a woman, he had some kind of physical disability, which made him embarrassed to be around women. Get out of here. Do you know how many women get killed on trails by serial killers? And those guys are perfectly fine. They don't stutter. They don't have their face looks perfectly good. There's nothing wrong with them at all, except for like killing women. I mean, trails are great places to kill women on. I mean, they're alone. They're jogging or hiking. It's like, oh, look, no witnesses. I'm going to go for it. The guy doesn't have to be physically disabled. So that was a bunch of bull. So how the heck did John Douglas know he had a stutter? I'll tell you how, because he already knew who the suspect was. And so he built his profile on something he already knew, and then pretended he didn't know it before. So he came up, he was so brilliant. Now, my God, my mind melded with a killer. Get out of here. They're full of it. So that's how that works. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a good question, Ruth. Is there a TV show or movie which depicts real life profiling the best in your opinion? The best would be something like Psych. Psych, because essentially, I mean, you could go a little bit with Death in Paradise, mostly because they're using the crime scene evidence to then develop what happened at the crime scene. That, okay, if you look at this is what happened. If you watch, it's a Quentin Tarantino didn't make the movie, but he was involved in helping make the movie. It's called Curdled. And it shows this woman she was like she did cleaning for a living. She was from Mexico, and she got this job. She was obsessed with crimes. She got this job as a crime scene cleaner. And so when she went in to clean crime scenes, she would then look at the evidence and go, okay, so I see the blood on the counter, and then she'd lay in this, and then she would go through the motions of what the killer did following the blood spatter pattern. was really kind of cool. It was very funny. It's actually kind of a comedy. And so that is essentially what a profiler should be doing, is to be looking at the actual details. And I've done that with certain crimes. I've actually gone through the motions of reenacting the crime scene in order to understand how it would happen, how it could happen if it did happen that way. Because sometimes I was like, yeah, that didn't happen, because physically couldn't make it possible. Or so being able to reenact the scene, being able to understand what the details might mean. Yes. Now, is it obviously Death in Paradise is exaggerated beyond belief, and the people who commit these crimes in Death in Paradise are like, do these amazingly brilliant crimes, or until they get caught. And it's like, nobody commits crimes that way. That's what's silly about it. But hey, it takes place in, I don't know, a nice Caribbean island, and I like the camaraderie. So, and then Psych, basically he's pretending to be psychic because they don't want to believe a profiler can figure these things out. So he's pretending he's psychic instead. But he's doing the kind of profiling that more like I would agree with. Stuff like Criminal Minds is total garbage, total absolute nonsense. And none of that happens in real life. So it's really hard to find any cases, anything that really shows how it really works, because if they showed how it really works, it would be boring as hell. Because most of the time, I've had some TV production companies say, "Oh, can we follow you?" I'm like, so when you study the crime, I'm like, okay, you actually want to go sit in the police station with me and watch me look for 8 to 10 hours. I'll just be sitting there looking at photos and looking at things, just sitting there. This makes bad TV. That's not going to work for you. I'd have to do all the work ahead of time, and then you would have to redo it to try to get the most important points. As to, there was going to be a show done. I had a production team that was going to call my show Crime Rewind with Pat Brown, and we did a whole sizzle roll and everything. And they gave me a case, and it was in DC, so they did follow me in it. And the whole concept was, I was showing them how you study all the different details of the crime, and then you rewind, and then you do the videotape of the crime in your head. Just, this is how it would have gone down based on the evidence. It might have been a good show, but it was supposed to be a Discovery Channel, and somebody at the top axed it and said, nah. So, good question, Gretchen. In a sense, here's where it's really true. Those who really profile, for the most part, are detectives. Okay, detectives do the profiling, and that's what my whole channel will be about. It's called It'll be practical profiling for detectives. Why? Because most of the time, detectives are the one doing the exact thing that I do. They have to analyze the crime scene to figure out what happened and then who to go after. They're the true profilers in every country, in every way. So, but the problem is they don't get any training. So most detectives get zero training. And I don't know how it works in other countries. In the US, it's like zero. So they just go from patrol officer to detective and sort of learn on the job. But they don't go to profiling school, which they should. They should go through, learn how to profile, learn how to study the evidence, so that when they are on the job, they do a good job studying the evidence and do it quickly, because you know how much time, and that's one of the problems for detectives, are so under pressure. But also, they shouldn't have detectives who are not very logical. And I've run into those, and I've gone into a department. I've had a detective say, this is what we think happened. And I'm looking at him going, seriously? That's what you think happened? Get out of here. Nice person, but no logic. So you have to have logic, and then you have to be able to understand how to analyze evidence that you have in a short period of time, so that you don't waste time going down the wrong avenues of investigation. So that could be very tricky. So I don't know quite what they do in all the other countries. Kane says, using probabilities is kind of how neural networks work. So maybe one day you can have AI do the profile and give you the most likely attributes. Just joking, probably not the best idea. Well, as far as AI goes, again, you don't want to use, if you just put in the statistics, I think it's a poor methodology, because statistics don't apply to a specific case. If you put in the actual details of the case, AI might not do a better job. And sadly for us profilers, if it does a reasonable job, and it can do it in 5 minutes, and the detectives theoretically could have that information on hand really quickly. I'm not saying it couldn't be useful, you know. So I guess it all depends on how AI is trained. Um, you like the characters in Criminal Minds, and I'm glad you do. I can't stand anyone, but I like the characters in Death in Paradise. But that's just me. Um, but that if that makes you like enjoy the show, all right. But the whole profiling stuff is stupid. Um, Les Nooch says, Pat, how do you feel about the term lone wolf being used in media for mass murderers? I personally dislike it because it sounds cool, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not overly fond of that. It's the same thing is true for terrorism as well. Lone wolf is more used for terrorism, actually, I think, than the mass murder stuff, because mass murders are most of the time, except for like a few mass murders, most of them are guys who just act alone, um, unless they have one buddy, Uh, so they're like you know depressed psychopaths who hate everybody, and either they're uh, uh, teens, young people who don't think there's anything left in the future, and they're just pissed off at everybody for that they have more of a future than they do, or the midlife crisis guys who just they didn't get the promotions and their wife left them and they hate life and they just want to go and kill everybody. So they usually work by themselves. Big deal. That's not, I wouldn't call them a lone wolf. I mean, that makes no sense. But with terrorism, the reason they use that, and a lot of times they're saying that this guy doesn't have like a cell behind him. He doesn't have a terrorism cell behind him. He's just a lone wolf. In other words, he decided he's going to go do something, and there was no terrorism cell. Now, for example, if you take the guys that blew up the FBI, what's got their names? It's been a while since I talked about them. But the FBI building killed all those people. They were what you would call lone wolves, in the sense that they were not connected. It really wasn't even terrorism. That was truly actually mass murder. Somebody give me their names. Help me out here, because I always forget names. They weren't mass murderers. I mean, they weren't really terrorists. They were mass murderers. And I was going to do a show on it one day. Because I actually went over to Colorado and I did a whole I worked with a Homeland Security group, went over there and talked about them. So I'm going to do a show on them. Somebody tell me their names again. Vic McVeigh. Yeah, thank you, Gretchen. McVeigh and his buddy. So McVeigh, he was he was mostly in his own mind. He wanted to do something that was really cool, and he read a bunch of stuff and he decided to do it. He wasn't part of a terrorist cell. He wasn't really committing terrorism. He was just committing mass murder, but in a big way. So I think it was misunderstood. Now, there's other people like the Texas guy, the guy who went to I can't remember names, and shot up the Texas, is it the air base? I'm trying to remember where what was his name? And he yelled Allah Akbar and shot people, and he was Muslim. So people said, oh, it was a terrorist attack. Not a terrorist attack. It was also a mass murder. He was a guy, as a midlife crisis guy. Thank you, Fort Hood. Love you guys. Thank you, Fort Hood shooter. He was a midlife crisis guy who didn't get the promotion he wanted and was pissed off and went and shot up everybody that worked at his workplace. He's a mass murderer. Just because you use certain words doesn't make you necessarily a terrorist. Now, there are true terrorism things where an entire terrorist cell sends forth its soldiers to commit a terrorist attack. That's terrorism. Others are, so when they're, quote, lone wolf, or somebody who's been online and is starting to identify with a group, they're still more of a mass murder type, because they'll pick any political group to be part of just so they can do the things they want to do. It doesn't make them really working. They're not really part of that group, grown up in that group, and are working with that group. It's like, are you a cartel member, or did you just decide to get a tattoo and go out and kill somebody and say, I'm with the MS-13 or something? You have to be part of it to be literally say, it's a cartel crime, or it's a it's a terrorism crime. So the rest of it is not so much terrorism, but is just a personal issue that they're attaching. Even mass murderers attach things, which people do misunderstand too. Let's say they decide they're going to go after a specific race or a specific group of people. A lot of times it has nothing to do with that they really hate Black people or really hate gays or really hate white people or really hate Jews or whatever it is. It's just that this will make more splash in the media. I want to be recognized, because if I kill a bunch of people and there's no like political angle to it, nobody's going to pay attention. But if I kill a bunch of people, they'll put and say, hey, it's because it's a hate crime. It'll get in the news, because mass murders are just about attention. They're media attention. They're media whores. They want the attention, which is why I stopped doing any shows talking about mass murders. I stopped that years ago on TV when I was doing all my regular television stuff. I said, I will no longer do this, because I think every time the TV goes berserko over a mass murder and goes into his name, his face, tell about his whole life, talk about why he did it, what his motive was, they're just encouraging the next mass murderer. And I felt like, okay, I can't do this anymore, because I just feel like I'm part of the problem, that I'm creating mass murders. Not creating the mass murder, but creating the climate for the mass murderer to think this is worth doing, because the media is going to make me important. Now, serial killers are a little different. Serial killers do it usually on the sly and for their own purposes, but mass murderers definitely do it for the media attention. So let me go back up here a second. I just hold on a second. I haven't figured out how to use this. I saw somebody this is very nice. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Phil. Appreciate it very much. I always forget that can be done on these live shows, and I forget it exists. I saw somebody else send something over too, and now I've got so many things here. I don't know where you can. I'm trying to figure out where you even see those things on here. So I'm not very. I don't do these shows live, public lives very often. So, but I know somebody else sent one over too. Where is it at? Where is it? I saw it. I know I did. Hold on a second. For some reason in StreamYard, I don't think here we go. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thoughts on Candace Owens' investigation of Charlie Kirk's murders? Erica's behavior is odd. I will not get into that. But thank you for the support for the channel. But no, I will not do. I do not do anything political on this channel as much as I can avoid it. Why? Because people cannot talk about things rationally. There can be. So the first few times I've talked about crimes that have a political person involved, and I've talked about the crime itself and what I saw as the evidence, it all turns into a nasty bunch of stuff, okay? And people cannot be nice. And that's the problem. The same people that say, oh, I can't have Thanksgiving dinner with my relatives anymore because they are Republicans, or because they're Democrats, or because this, or because that. I'm like, I have relatives who think all kinds of different ways politically. I have some people I totally disagree with as far as their whole views on life and other things, but we don't always have to talk about politics. So I don't have to, if I'm someplace and we say, hey, look, no politics here. Thanksgiving, no politics. Christmas, no politics. Hey, just hanging out, having a drink, no politics. I don't want to have this battle. Now, if a couple people, let's say a person wants to sit down and talk to me and have just a calm conversation about something, discussing different matters, I'm perfectly fine with it. But on this channel, if I put it on here on the internet, it's going to get nasty. And so let me say right here on this channel, please, no political comments whatsoever. Because it just turns in, I end up blocking people because of that. And I just think it's, to me, it's just a sad way that the U.S. has gone, and much of the world has gone to this constant nasty attacks on people of differing viewpoints. Because, sometimes in life, we have one viewpoint for 20 years and we might change our viewpoint as we grow older or as we come into a new situation. And so, never hate on people, because you might be one of the people that you're hating on one day. So, let's see. Let me go back down here again. Anything Tarantino touches turns to gold, except that last movie. Wasn't he involved in the battle one? what's that one? One battle, one what after the other. What was that? Worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Can't understand how it deserved any awards. And he was involved in that, so he must be going downhill. But I agree with most of. I love most Tarantino movies. It's true. Um, let's see. Pat can stab over 100 times in 1 minute. Yes, I can. I did a whole example one time because um, once people think that when somebody stabbed like 50 times, they think it takes like an hour to do that. And so there was a crime that I had where the time frame was very short. So what I actually did was I actually walked away from the computer and I pretended I was stabbing. And I stabbed like crazy. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I got a whole bunch in within a very short period of time. So I wanted to prove that that can be done. So a lot of times people just think that the person had to be there for an hour and they only had to be there for 5 minutes. So yes, that is true. Let's see. Oh, that nonsense. No, I didn't. I did not miss that. I think I commented on a hangout. Zodiac and Elizabeth Short have a zero to do with each other. That's called a person who's obsessing. And the problem is that it's new podcast. It's also a book. Guy wrote a whole freaking book. And what he did was, if you, this is what happens. If you study something long enough, you will come up with dots that you think you can connect this dot to this dot and this dot to that dot. Very circumstantial stuff, which is so unlikely. Like this person had a similar name, or this person was once in that same town but 4 years apart. No, then it's meaningless. It's like just because they walked through that town doesn't mean anything. Just because somebody had a date with somebody 2 years before they were murdered doesn't make them the murderer. So you can take something and connect all kinds of dots and come up with some kind of theory. And so that is absolute nonsense. I looked at that theory and thought it was ridiculous. So yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm already home. So don't I wish I was still in Hawaii? Yeah, I'm here in my Maryland house and I'm already depressed as heck. I think I belong in Hawaii. I went for 3 months this year. I've been there for a month before. I've been there this is my 6th time in Hawaii, but I wanted to stay longer so that I could get it out of my system, the concept that I'd rather live in Hawaii than Maryland. So I stayed 3 months and I wished I was staying way longer. So I didn't get out of my system. I found that I'm much more comfortable in Hawaii than I am in Maryland. So, my all-time YouTuber. Okay. When did you start YouTube? I started 5 years ago. Exactly 5 years ago in March. Now, yeah, I'm already home. Yeah, I flew in yesterday. I had a layover in Dallas, which was torture because going through that airport is just miserable. Has nothing to do with TSA, by the way, because that was a connection. And but getting from the plane through the airport to the next plane was so ridiculous. I barely made the plane, and I didn't have time to even go to the bathroom because the bathroom line was so freaking long. So it was just a very unpleasant place too. I just do not like the Dallas airport. What's your view on the news about Maddie being given 15? What? Oh, more money for Maddie. Oh yeah, I did see that. They need to stop funding that. Is what they need to stop doing. It never. First of all, it was never funded properly because Scotland Yard was given that. They were told in a remit to not look at the McCanns. They could only look at the case as an abduction, which to me violates every review, because I don't care if you think the McCanns have nothing to do with it. You think she was truly abducted, bully for you. But when you go in to work a case, you say, I'm starting at the beginning. Everybody is on, everything is, I don't know anything. I'm going to go in and look at all the evidence. I'm going to look at all the interviews. I'm going to look at everything. I'm not going to exclude anybody or any scenario before I get there. So when I work with police, I don't care what the police told me. Sometimes I tell them, stop, please. Don't tell me what you think. Don't even tell me what you think. Let me look at the evidence, because if you're bringing me in as an outside person to review everything, I should review everything. But if I'm going to come in and you're going to say, oh, by the way, you can't look at this person. I would not even look at that crap. If you give me a remit that says I have to exclude somebody before I start the case and I have to look at the case in a certain way, that is a violation of the professionalism. And that Scotland Yard did that, I think, is one of the worst things I've ever seen Scotland Yard do. And I don't know why that happened, but I think it's appalling. And the fact that it's been going on for years and they've been funded, massive amount of funding, and they still have never looked at the case properly. Now, if they had looked at the case properly and then excluded came up with the support, by the way, when I talk about profiling, you have to have evidence to support it. There is zero evidence that supports the abduction theory in the Madeleine McCann case. Now, the only thing you could say is she vanished. That is the vanishing of her. You could say we would have to look at abduction. Doesn't mean it is abduction. We'd have to look at it because she vanished. But there is no evidence that says she was abducted outside of the fact she's not there anymore. So if there's no evidence, you can't say that she was abducted. You can say she was removed from the apartment or she removed herself from the apartment, but we have to look at these different avenues of investigation. And the evidence does not point to abduction. The evidence is always pointed to an accident in the vacation flat in Portugal, in Praia da Luz. And the evidence has always supported that after the accident, somebody removed her from the vacation flat. And the evidence supports that the McCanns were not interested in one of the very possible abductors of Madeleine, which would be the Smith family seeing somebody carrying a child away at the time of the supposed abduction went on. The fact they weren't interested tells me they know what happened to her. And they also wanted the other sighting, the Jane Tannerman sighting, to be believed because that's when Jerry McCann had an alibi. So you can go watch I do have a whole book here if you haven't seen it yet. If you go, I'll try to remember to link it, but it is a profile of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. That is a book you can buy any place but Amazon, $2.99. And you can also watch it's an audio book right on this channel for free, which I read the whole book. So the fact that they continue to get more and more money to go look for her and have had zero results, zero success, and yet still refuse to actually analyze the case properly tells me this has been a complete, it's one of the most embarrassing things, I think, in UK crime solving history, because obviously Scotland Yard has done some really good work, but that's an embarrassment. And I don't know why it's still going on. So, and I won't get into politics here because people have all kinds of Looney Tune theories on the McCanns and politics, which I just think is all nonsense. Let's see. Let's see some of your other questions here. Let's see. Sorry, I'm rolling down here. He explicitly stated that it was the bombing of the Mirror building was a retaliatory strike for the federal government's actions in Waco. Sure. That's not true. That's called a lie. This is where I'm saying you can't believe psychopaths. He wanted to come up with something exciting. He really didn't give much of a crap about that. If you have to look at, that's why I'm going to have to do a show on McVeigh, because I did a whole study of McVeigh. And the book he was reading that he got his ideas from, he actually got a plot straight from a book. His life was messed up. His life was falling apart. That's the mass murderer thing. And you have to come up with a good reason that supports why you're doing this, because you want to come across as a hero, because you want to have a valid reason for what you do. And for a psychopath, the only person that matters is himself. So if he wants to feel like he's a hero, he will come up with an excuse. Doesn't mean it's true. So don't believe just because somebody says something that has anything to do with reality. Let's see. Oh, you went to Alcatraz. Oh, last week I went to Alcatraz East Museum in Pigeon Forge. Oh, Alcatraz East. I saw a sign inside the museum near the John Wayne Gacy that was a quote from you. Really? That's interesting. What did I say about John Wayne Gacy? Really? I don't know what it was. Things. Hopefully, I really said that, because you never know. Somebody could have put it up there and said I said it. Let's see. Wouldn't body mass take less time to remove knife? Bone can cause blade to break. Well, there is a point to that depending on how deep you, okay, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but this is reasonable thought that says what you're asking. When you're stabbing somebody, just in case you have that plan in the future, if you stab deeply, it's going to take you more time also to remove. It takes you longer to stab, it takes you longer to move. But a lot of times when you see these cases which have a lot of stab wounds, they're very, very shallow. They're almost like pickerism, like so they can be very quick. Then there are times when you break the knife. There was this horrible crime, which I worked with the victim of this crime. She had a man come into her house, and he tied her up, and her son was in the other room, and he said, if you don't cooperate, I will kill your son. So she cooperated, and he was stabbing her, and he broke his knife, and he actually said, "Oh, dang it, I broke my knife. I'll have to go get another one." And he went to the kitchen and got another knife and came back and continued. And then he cut her throat, and one of the most horrific crimes ever. And then he left, and she managed actually to phone 911, and she actually survived. It was the most bizarre thing, because she said her head was hanging down. I mean, luckily it didn't cut the carotid artery, but she survived it in spite of all the things that happened to her. It was horrific. But yeah, you can break a knife too. Let's see. Why is it unsolved? We don't know, because the problem is we're not on the inside of the case, which I say over and over, which is why people need to stop this nonsense with the case. Many cases are not solved. You know how many cases are out there that aren't solved? Dozens, hundreds, thousands of cases that are unsolved. Why? Because the person didn't leave enough evidence for them to solve it. Because they misinterpreted the evidence and went the wrong direction, giving the killer time to get rid of stuff. Because they just have no idea who it is. There's a million reasons why a crime goes unsolved for a period of time or forever. And I don't know, because I'm not on the inside, and I'm not going to sit here and trash that sheriff in that case, police chief, whatever his name is. I'm not going to trash him, because I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what his people have done. I know they brought the FBI, and I don't know what they've done. I don't know that they may even know or have an idea who did it, but they can't say. Or they don't know who did it, but they're working on leads. I don't know. And none of us know. And I think all of these stupid YouTubers who are standing outside of the house of the Guthrie family, the relatives, stalking them, and people being online constantly pointing fingers all the time saying, "Oh, I think so-and-so did." I think it's disgusting. It's despicable. And I think it all needs to stop. I want all those people to stand down, but they're making so damn much money on a daily basis, thousands of dollars on a daily basis, because of all the viewers who are spending all this time on the Nancy Guthrie case. It's just one case. Let the police handle it and leave it alone. Once in a while, when new information, real true new information comes out, I get people want to have a moment. I have come out and spoken on a number of cases when I have something to say. I will not follow a case daily, do that kind of stuff, because I think it's appalling. It is appalling. And some of the people that are involved in it, quite frankly, have personality disorders. The ones who are on YouTube have personality disorders, and they're horrible people. They're liars. They're con artists, and you're all following them. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. Oh, this is a good question. Are you surprised Herman is going to plead guilty? For the most, it's hard to say. Sometimes they will plead guilty because the number one reason is because they're getting a deal. Whatever the deal is. Now, he's going to go down in court. There's no way he knows he's going to be found guilty. So that's the first thing. It's not like he has a good defense. He doesn't. He's going to be found guilty. So he now has to decide whether if he's found guilty, which he's going to be found guilty, what the sentence is going to be. And then he's going to have a discussion with his lawyers. Is there any way I can get a better deal for whatever the reason is? It's a better deal. When you look at Dennis Rader, why did he willingly plead guilty? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I believe that they gave him a deal that if he confessed to all of the what is called the BTK cases, the early ones, that the first two major cases, the Otero crime and the Catherine Bright crime, the family of four that got killed in Catherine Bright, I don't believe Dennis Rader killed those people. But he had another victim that when they brought back the death penalty, I think it was, this is a long time, so it's a long time if I'm a little vague on this because I can't remember anything. They brought back the death penalty. And when they did, I think this is how it worked, he killed somebody after the death penalty came back. So I think he made a deal. I'll confess to these if you just don't go after that one case. That way I'll get life in prison and I won't get the death penalty. And that's why I think he confessed. Why did Todd Kolib confess to a mass murder he did not commit in South Carolina? Because they got him out of the death penalty. So I don't know why Herman is confessing. It could be because theoretically, sometimes they say they don't want their family to have to go through court. If he cared about his family, he wouldn't be murdering tons of people. But anyway, he certainly doesn't care about the victims' families. Like he wants to spare the victims' families from the pain. Because as the one serial killer in Canada said, if I cared about the children that he killed, he said, if I cared about them, if I cared about the children's parents, I wouldn't have killed their kids. Bingo. So serial killers don't care about anybody. So they're only going to do something that benefits them. So I don't know what the deal is for him. I'm sure he got something that makes it worth his while because that's the only reason he's going to do it. So I'm not surprised. I'm just I guess he got a deal. Let's see. Book recommendations. Well, that's too complicated right now because there'll be tons. I'm going to do a whole on my new channel. I will do book recommendations with each one of the areas that I'm going to be talking about. Like what are the best forensic pathology books? What are the best criminal profiling books? So on and so forth. Do I think the McCanns will ever face justice? If they're guilty, and I always say if because I haven't said they're guilty, even in spite of the fact that I've been libeled. I said that all the evidence supports that there was no abduction. That's what the evidence leans toward. There was no abduction. That it leans toward the McCanns being involved. However, there's no body, and you can't. The dogs that hit on the cadaver and blood behind the sofa in their vacation flat, you cannot put dogs on the stand. So that's not proof in a courtroom. You can't put a theory on the stand in a courtroom without having something to back the theory more than some vague circumstantial evidence. There's circumstantial evidence, but it's not the kind of circumstantial evidence that would absolutely work. There are cases where the circumstantial evidence is so damn good that that person is going to go down. In this case, it's enough for further investigation, but not absolute proof for court. And now that Scotland Yard came in and said it was an abduction, the whole case is screwed because there's no prosecutor's going to want to get them in court and say, oh, but everybody's going to say, well, the defense goes, but Scotland Yard, the most famous, the most famous agency, law enforcement agency in the world, said it was an abduction. So they would have to find the body of Madeline, and they would have to have something that with her body that links back to the McCanns. What would that be? The only thing I can think of is a missing sports bag. If she were in the missing sports bag, that would be a pretty good, and some place where they had access to and buried her or something. That would be the only way. And the only other way is as a deathbed confession type thing. One of the McCanns confessing, and that's definitely not going to be Jerry, for sure. Kate, possibly, but I think if they are guilty, they're never going to confess. They're pretty much proven they're standing their ground. Favorite what? Okay. Hi, Pat. Hi, Penelope. Glad you're home safely, but sorry you had to come home. Yeah, me too. Our youngest son, Morgan, wants to ask, what is your favorite My favorite oh, there it is. Sorry. Favorite place you've ever lived? Hawaii. That would be Oahu. I'm a big Oahu fan because I think it's the most beautiful place in the world. And everything. I used the bus the whole time I was there, except a couple times I rented a car. But other than that, I used the bus. I love the bus system there. I love the mountains in front of me, and just when sometimes in the bus, you go through the most gorgeous mountains. It's crazy. And then you got the beaches right there too. I like Honolulu for all the things you can be involved in, because it's a city, but it's a small city. It's almost like a big town rather than a city. Um, and there's all these neighborhoods across the island that are just so different from each other. So, you got Kaneohe, you got Kaului, you've got Manoa, you've got Waianae, you've got just all these different places. I have all these different places across the island, all like culturally very different. So what happens, like if you go to Kailua, you get one kind of lifestyle. If you go to Ewa Beach, you get another kind of lifestyle. So it's similar but different. I can't explain it, but I just love the culture there. I just like it there. The other place I've always enjoyed is India, which is 100% different because I do love Indian music. I like Indian food. I like wearing saris. I like wearing, Indian people are super friendly. That's it. So the only two places I've considered living is Hawaii and India, which are as different as I can possibly get. So that's just me. So yeah, let's see. Having written a book on Cleopatra, have you ever studied? I can't even pronounce it. Opianicus case. If you believe Cicero, he was a serial killer, but that, of course, is just one side of the story. No, I have not actually. It all depends whether there's enough evidence there that you can work with. With Cleopatra, actually, there was a tremendous amount of evidence, geographical evidence, historical evidence, political evidence, physical evidence, behavioral evidence. There was quite a lot, so that's why I was able to write the whole book on Cleopatra's life and death. And otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to do it. Let's see. Peter Hyatt, miss him very much. Peter Hyatt was wonderful. A very good statement analyst. And yes, his embedded confession is also on YouTube, which is good. And also Deception Detective does some good stuff on the Madeleine McCann case as well. Let's see. Tiger Woods. What, in Florida? Oh, I don't know about. Is this new? Because I remember the other one. He got very injured, and he's like definitely got some problems with substance abuse for sure. Let's see. Well, there are two kinds of serial killers: the ones you see before they pounced, and the ones you don't expect to see. That's actually very true. Yeah. There's ones that hit you from behind. There's ones that come at you. Lure you. There's the ones that lure you, and the ones that just attack you. So you got the two kinds. But either way, you end up dead usually. Oh, thank you very much, Christoph. That's funny. Well, let's all get to know the people who are always watching and in the know, but aren't patrons. Just like I was for a whole year, my recommendation is become a patron. Yes, I'm happy to have you as a patron, Christoph. I mean, I do enjoy our smaller community of patrons. Keeps me going because, a lot of people say, well, why do you even do live shows? Why don't you just do videos? And it's because I like the community. I don't just like working and just staring at a camera with no other side to the camera. It's just talking. It's a little lonely. So I enjoy doing my live shows and having the conversations. And we keep it. The patron, for the most part, is the reason it's advantageous to do live patron only is because it's more controllable. Do a public live, and I don't have a moderator. Sometimes you get some wacky stuff going on, and so I enjoy every once in a while saying, "Hey guys, this is come and talk to me, and let's have a open live, a public live." But on a regular basis, it would be probably a bit too much. So yes, become a patron, and it does really help support the channel because with AI coming through, AI has probably killed 50% of my income because the algorithm now, actually it's really interesting. I found this out too, that AI is stealing my stuff. They will actually use my show material and then revamp it into an AI show using my stuff. And they'll just put different pictures and have the AI voice, and and then the algorithm will push that show, and they'll get like 100,000 views on a show that I did and got 2,000. So they're getting all the money. And so what we would talk about educational channels, if you're not out there doing that Nancy Guthrie stalking crap, and being a con artist, essentially, you don't make that kind of money if you're not a big fat gossip. So you make some money, and which is fine. I don't know, it's not, but 50% of my income dropped with AI because they're stealing not only my stuff, but just putting up so much garbage that the algorithm prefers them over real people because they make more money for YouTube. And that's just the reality of today's world. Not anybody's fault except for the big companies who they're more interested in making money than the quality of their shows. So that's the way it goes. Oh, did I say that? Oh, that was a great quote then. The quote of the museum. Said that, paraphrase, that there are two types of serial killers: the ones you expect to pounce on, the ones you don't. Oh, that's funny. That's my quote. Okay. It's what cracks me up sometimes is I have actually looked up some stuff. Sometimes I put it in Google and I'll get this thing. Oh, I'm reading it going, oh, this is pretty smart. I really like this. And then I find out it's me. I'm like, oh, okay. That's so how narcissistic of me. Anyway, let's see. Okay, my question is: cases like Nancy Guthrie or Sebastian Rogers have not progressed. Do you think they should go back to square one? That is a good question. I always think at a certain point it's nice to have a different set of eyes review. I absolutely believe that, because what happens is, even for myself, let's say I review a case and I come up with these conclusions, or at least these are my theories, or these are my determinations, and that I think we should go down A, 90% down A and only 10% down B. And nothing comes of it. Maybe somebody else needs to step in and say, let me take a look at things. Maybe I'll see it differently. If I see it the same way as Pat Brown, maybe it really is the way we're going, and it's going to be one of those cases. But maybe I'll see something Pat Brown didn't see. And it could be for a whole bunch of different reasons. Not that one of us sucks, which could be true as well. But it could be it's a cultural thing. It could be we just, we see something in a different way, male, female, or older, younger, or I know guns better than you do, or I'm more familiar with the landscape than you. Could be a bunch of different things. It could be just an idea. Like when I was working the mass murder case in South Carolina, the Superbikes case, one of the issues was, could the last customer, who was a suspect at one time, and for good reason, could the last customer have been the one that killed him? I mean, after all, he's the last customer, that was known last customer. Hey, good suspect, right? But he was driving a truck, and he had a motorbike like thing hooked to the back of the truck. And we know the moment, we actually know the exact moment that the last of the four got shot in the head. So we know so we knew that time frame, the time that he got shot. If that last customer shot him in the head, and then he had to go get in his truck and drive his truck, hauling this motorcycle behind it, and he had to go down a country road like this and pass a convenience store which had a camera, could he make it at the time that the camera showed he went by? In other words, could he make it in that time? And the answer was, because nobody tried this but me, I took the rental car I had, which happened to be a sports car. I took my sports car, and what I did was I sat at the end of the drive at the parking lot, and I waited till all the cars, because cars are going by. So if you got stuck behind somebody, it's going to change. You're going to slow you down, right? I waited till all the cars went by and that the road was empty, but I waited. So if I saw, let's say the last car's coming by and the road's going to be empty. As soon as that guy got past me and the road was empty behind him, I hauled ass. I hit, how did this work? I'm trying to remember how I did it. So No, take that back. I let him go by, the last person go by, and I watched the road and I waited as long as it was empty, 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 because I didn't want to run into the back of this guy's car, right? So I waited till I saw the next car coming down the road, and then I pulled out in front of that car, and then I hit the gas, and I went down the road as fast as I could possibly go. And I did this over and over and over again. And I could never make the time frame that was on that camera with a sports car. So if that guy shot him and got in the vehicle and drove there, he could not have made it. So that meant he had to have left before the shooting went down. Now, there was one other possibility. I said, did you check to make sure the time on the camera was right? And they had never done that. So that wasn't very helpful. But if the camera was correct, he couldn't be the guy that did it. He didn't have enough time to do it because he was already gone. And then somebody then came in, and I have a top suspect who I think then rolled in. But he was not in the place at the time. I think the last customer had left and he came in after the fact. But that was something I came up with that they hadn't come up with. It could be somebody else would come in and say, wait a minute, how about this? So I always think more than one mind is a good idea, because that's how you figure stuff out. And that's where you have, okay, we didn't quite look at this. We should go look at this too. And then maybe that's the answer to the crime. So I would hope they would do that. But a lot of times police departments don't like other people looking at their cases. They don't put new people on them. They're like very, this is my case type of thing. And that's why they usually don't call the FBI in either, because they usually don't like them around. But they did on the Guthrie case, although, see, now people are saying, why didn't the FBI solve it? Well, because maybe it's the same problem. It's difficult, It's difficult. Nothing is as easy as people think it is. Let's see. Well, talking about the Lucy Lepke case. This case is going to probably go through. It's what happens in some of these cases is I believe Lucy Lepke is guilty. I believe the evidence is there, but because she's a female and because she looks sad, and because people just this whole crowd has grown that says, oh, she's just again. The doctors all got together and covered up and decided, we haven't had a great record of babies dying here. So, that nice, sweet, innocent nurse over there, why don't we just try to frame her? Get out of here. That's not, that never happened. Any more than the Karen Reed case, all the people in the house decided they were going to kill John and cover it up. And then they were going to get everybody else to cover it up too. The ambulance driver, the forensic people, everybody's going to all get this huge conspiracy. It's just nonsense. So, but that's the way people like to go. And the same thing is also happening in the Noah Donahoe case out in Ireland. I spoke on that case. It's going into the 9th week of that inquest. And everything points to him having some kind of a psychotic episode in his life. He was depressed. He was having life issues. His mother even admitted that. He disappeared. He came back, and then he disappeared again, acting very weirdly. And he ends up drowned with no other sign of any kind of damage to him. And he died of drowning. So basically, that was the case. But they got this inquest now, pointing fingers, and now it's all the police are in collusion, and the government's in collusion. They hate the kid because he's biracial. All kinds of nonsense out there. And the problem is people like to be involved these days because of the internet in some kind of vigilante group. We're going to prove that we're right. And we're going to prove that they didn't, the government's wrong. And they get in these groups and these little groups, and that could be the McCann case as well. I see it there too, an obsession with that one case. And sometimes they take it, it becomes, the group grows so strong, it becomes to the point where they start interfering with police investigations, and they start marching on the street like they did in Noah Donahoe case, marching down the street with signs, and and that's how come they got the inquest that the mother and her and the vigilante friends want. They're never, what's going to happen in that case, and I said it 9 weeks ago. I said, Noah Donahoe case, they're not going to ever say he was murdered, which is what the mother and the friends want. So since they're never going to say he was murdered, they might have come up with some less than perfect police handling of things, which get real. I mean, that happens in every case. It happens in real life. Nothing is perfect. Sometimes you get people aren't as competent as they should be, or maybe somebody just overlooked something. But if you want, you sit there and you go through everything. I mean, I've been worked at cases where I've seen some screw ups, some detectives. I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, really no. But I don't hate them. I don't say, oh, they were there was any conspiracy. I was like, well, nobody's perfect. Sometimes stuff goes wrong. I'm like, okay, let's see if we can fix this. So I don't mind that if the inquest were just over, hey, how could this have been handled better? And we're just going to improve things. That would be one thing. But that's not what the inquest is about, in spite of the fact people claim that. It's about proving Noah Donahoe was murdered. And if you don't prove he was murdered, it's good. It's going to be because you're covering it up. And I've gotten so much massive hate off of that video I did, because people, they're getting involved and they want to feel useful and like they're doing something. And so with the advent of the internet, the ability for a whole bunch of people getting together and doing this kind of stuff has gotten out of hand. And it's unfortunate in the sense that it's become really obnoxious. And of course, the Innocence Project loves that stuff because they don't care about evidence. They care about trying to get guilty people out of prison based on some kind of, some failure that the criminal justice system do everything perfectly. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be interested in proving where they failed, but they're not failing because the guy was innocent. They're failing because they just did some little whatever they shouldn't have done, A, B, or C. And so that we can somehow, the case then should get an appeal, but sometimes it's just, now they just let the guy go. And then he sues for like $10 million, even though he's guilty, and he makes a lot of money. Crazy stuff. Maybe Herman wants to spare his family, except that he's a psychopath who doesn't care. But his wife would make much more money if there was a juicy trial to include in the Netflix deal. That's probably true. Maybe he doesn't want his wife to get the extra money. There's still going to be a Netflix show. That we know that. There's going to be like 10 documentaries on Herman. So I guess she could pop into all of those. But that he cares about his family. He cares about his family like you care about, let's put it this way, your car, maybe your pets, if you're not a person that considers your pets part of your family, in the sense that a psychopath can like and enjoy his family. Like you would enjoy a pet or you would enjoy a new car or a new house. The difference is you would actually care about your pets, but if he had a pet that annoyed him, he would kill it. And if it, so that's why some psychopaths just kill their families or kill their wives, because they say, well, I thought they loved their wife. No, they never loved their wife. They loved having their wife. It's a different thing. Love having something. Somebody to have sex with you, somebody to clean the house, somebody to have children look up to you and say, you're so wonderful, whatever. Or you want to cover for, your behavior. So if you got a nice little family, people won't suspect you of being a serial killer. So that works too. So psychopaths use families. They don't love them. And therefore, they're not going to do things to spare their family. If they say they're doing it to spare their family, it's really because it's benefiting them in some way. We just don't know what it is. It could be because they want the family. If they go to court, the family might hate them more and not come to prison and bring them things and do nice things. Maybe get conjugal visits, depending on where you are. So there's some psychopaths, serial killer wives who still visit their husbands in prison, and some daughters who still visit their serial killer daddies in prison. And they like that. They maybe want to keep that because it gives them that power and control they would lose if maybe they went to trial and the person didn't like it. Who knows? I mean, it's all in their mind, not in ours. Do you think tips and leads from the first 72 hours on abducted persons are crucial? Well, I mean, theoretically, yes, all the tips and leads. I mean, in any case, all the tips and leads are something that may lead to finding out who killed somebody, who the killer is, or what happened to them, where they are. The first, as I say, the first 48 are extremely important. But the problem is in a lot of cases is the more publicity they get, the more garbage they get as tips and leads. Most of the time they're garbage. And that's one of the people say, well, I don't understand why they've never responded to my tip, because probably your tip was nonsense, because you get psychics calling in, you get people blaming their ex-boyfriends, whatever. The guy next door is weird. You get all these massive amount of tips and people don't understand. You only have so much manpower and you only have so much time and you only have so much money. So while you're trying to deal with the crime scene, the family, the leads, people think, and by the way, just because you're working on one case doesn't mean there's not other cases. When my daughter was working homicide, she was hardly ever home. The homicide cases, you get one homicide case and 2 days later, you have another homicide case, maybe 2 hours later. People don't understand how it works. And they think the police are just sitting around drinking coffee and having those donuts and not acting on the information they're getting. It's just overwhelming. Sometimes like, I can't talk politics there. But let me put it this way. I've seen some cases where you go into work on the case and there's an entire closet with boxes after box after box, boxes and boxes of case files, thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of information. Guess what? 99% of that is complete garbage. It's either stupid tips that make nothing, stupid accusations that are meaningless, or they're just paperwork. It's like on such and such a day, we sent such and such to whatever. And it takes them 20 pages to do that. If you've ever seen like an FBI profile compared to my profiles, because I'm lazy, the FBI profilers, they will spend 20 pages describing the case they're going to profile, even though the detectives already know the case. They'll do everything like, I was contacted on September 20 by Detective so-and-so, and and just a pile of stuff. And then they finally get to the profile. For me, I'm like, this is the profile. I don't have the energy to go through the 20 pages of being snobbily professional, which I guess that law enforcement and the FBI have to do these kind of things. So you can get reports written, tons and tons of useless reports. And so people, when you hear about certain cases with massive amounts of million files on this, a million pieces of paper, most of it's junk. But people think it's all important, and it's not. But yet, guess who has to deal with all those thousands of papers coming in, or tips or whatever? The police, and they get overwhelmed in it. So they just do the best they can. So let's see. I trust your opinions. Well, here's the point. My opinions aren't always right. Nobody's opinions are always right. But what you hopefully can learn from opinions is, again, if the opinions are supported by evidence or at least logic, then you get a chance to then think about what has been said and say, does this have merit? And when a detective, police look at a profile I've done, or an equivocal death analysis or whatever, I do my best to explain every single thing I put in it, because I don't want them to say, oh, Pat Brown, she's a top profiler, so we should believe her. No, you shouldn't. I don't care who the profiler is. You shouldn't just believe them. You should look at what they're giving you and say, does it make sense, and have they supported everything? And even then, it's not perfect. See, people want perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. So what you do is hope that you get enough information, enough knowledge, so that you do a better job determining your avenues of investigation, so that if you go down a better avenue of investigation, you may catch the guy. You may get more evidence. That's the whole point. Whether, perfection isn't really important. Is there a way to support your one-time donations rather than YouTube? Yes, I put it below. There is, yes, people do support me occasionally with a Cash App or PayPal, or that. I'll put the stuff below. I haven't added it yet. I usually have it on every one of my videos. I do have that. And so, yeah, because YouTube does, they like to take your money. Apple also likes to take your money. So even over at Patreon, Patreon was pretty minimal, but then Apple came in and they're using a lot of if you go through Apple, then Apple takes its cut too. So Yeah, it's kind of sucks. Um, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the Fatima Ali case. Oh, is this the Fatima Ali case? Was this the one where the father attacked her in the parking lot or something after school? I'm trying to remember which one it was. I was appalled. If that was the one it was, I was appalled they did not get more severe penalty. And I don't know whether unfortunately, I think a cultural issue came in where we give certain leeway, and so one culture will give another culture certain leeway because they don't want to appear to be racist or whatever. And so they'll say it's part of that culture. So therefore we shouldn't be so strict with what they do. And I mean, in a way, I mean, we do that even with subcultures in the United States. Is like, we all don't like raise children the same way. Like, is corporal punishment ever acceptable, or is it not? And of course, in the past, corporal punishment was quite acceptable, but it's not now. But if a person is of a particular subculture which uses more corporal punishment, can you charge them with child abuse? So there are definitely issues with that, where we tread more carefully or softly because we think they should get that break, or because we're afraid to look bad if we don't give them that break. So that, yeah, but if that's the case, I was kind of appalled. Theories about that under sedation fell behind the couch and hit the head. That is the most likely theory. That makes sense. Either that she fell and hit her head on the floor, also the positional asphyxiation. I don't think the number 2 is anaphylactic shock after multiple nights. I don't think so. Talks about no. I think it was just a one-time thing. Not that she couldn't have been sedated on other nights, but I think the reason they were sedated was because of the night before, and that's why the McCanns were worried about their other children. Kate was checking the breathing on the children. But go check out my book on that. We don't know so we do not know that they screwed up. See, this is the problem. The police screwed up the Sebastian case. Do you know that? You do not know that. They may not be able to arrest anybody. That may be a simple fact. You can't arrest somebody because you want to arrest them. You cannot do that. You have to have thing called probable cause. And the prosecutor has to get in on that and say, hey, if you're going to arrest them, you better have enough evidence for me to take this thing to court, because I don't want to prosecute this case if it's complete such a weak case, I can't prosecute it. So there may be reasons they haven't arrested anybody. Do I think Sebastian walked away? I do not. Do I think somebody close to him did something? Yes, I do. Do I think there's proof at this point? They do not have a body again. It's like the McCann case. They do not have a body. So you can only do what you can do. So saying the police screwed up is an unfair thing to say. And I think people do this all the time, pointing fingers. Now, do I think sometimes the police screw up? Yes. But I'm not going to point fingers unless I know they screwed up for sure. And I have a reason to call them out on it. Like the Sheriff Wright of the Superbikes case. I think he's got a personality disorder. I think he's a lying dog. I think he should never have been sheriff. He's crooked. He's crooked. And I think he and his little friends closed that case with lies and a plea deal with a serial killer. I'll call them out on that because I know it for a fact. But I'm not working the inside of that case. I don't know what's true and what isn't true. I don't know what the police did. And so I'm not going to point fingers at the police when I don't know what's going on. Same thing in the Guthrie case. I can't say the police are doing a good job or not because I'm not inside the case to say that. They may be working around the hours, around the clock. They may have ideas exactly what happened. They may have good clues. They're trying to figure it out. And so it all depends. And if it turns out that that the person who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie or persons are completely unknown to her, it's sometimes very difficult to find out who the heck those people are. So they may just be, it might be a difficult case. And because everybody here thinks, not here, but everybody on the internet thinks they should solve a case in 48 hours. Yeah, because you're not police. And I'll tell you, anybody who's been working in law enforcement knows that's not the way the real world works, as much as people watch TV think it does. Let's see. No, nobody said that. I don't know where you're getting that from. Police detectives believe there was no neglect. That's not true. I don't think that's not true. There was clear neglect. The reason that they were never charged with neglect is because when a parent who neglects their child has their child, quote, abducted, they don't want to charge the grieving parents because, first of all, an abduction is a rare, if it were true, it's a rare circumstance. It's like somebody is saying about the Australian case. They're like, well, they shouldn't have let him play outside for half an hour. It's like almost 5 years old, right? So a little boy playing outside, place is a empty desert essentially, and a house, and he's outside playing in the sand for supposedly 30 minutes. I don't know that I believe that that's what happened. Gus Lamont. I don't know if Gus was really out there playing. I don't know if he was. That's just just something to say. He was out there and then he was disappeared somehow. But is it really wrong to let a kid go outside and play for 30 minutes? Is that neglect? Is it neglect if you leave your child in another room and something happens to them? They hang themselves on a cord and you were out washing dishes. Is that neglect? So there's neglect there. So a lot of times things can happen that are unexpected. So if your kid plays outside and somebody just comes by the house and jumps out of the car and swoops them off the lawn, do you charge them with neglect? Now, admittedly, I think the McCanns did neglect their children, leaving 3 children under the age of 4 alone in a vacation flat. And I do believe it was locked down. But 4 little kids you can have no eyes on them, no ears on them, so you can go drinking. I think absolutely is neglect. But that if a child were actually abducted, somebody broke into the flat and abducted a child, that is such a completely rare instance that what police are not going to do is probably charge the grieving parents who've just had their child kidnapped, maybe even being raped and murdered. They're not going to charge them with neglect because they're already been punished by the abduction. They're suffering terribly from the abduction. And if they arrest them for neglect, people will be angry. How could you do that? Their child was kidnapped and then you're putting them in. That's why they didn't do it, because it served no purpose at that point. So no, it's not that they didn't think the kids were neglected. It's just that they're just not going to arrest them for it. 2 different things. Was there a case homicide that changed my way of thinking about perps? I don't know in what way. I mean, for the most part, most people commit homicides are psychopaths, although a lot of people think otherwise, but I don't. I mean, it's just like killing people is just something you don't do unless you got personality disorder, unless you really are psychotic. I'd have to think about that one. I don't have an answer off the top of my head. Let's see. That is true. I 100% agree with that. The Innocence Project uses dirty tactics to free killers. What there are, I call them the what was the term? Now I forgot what I used to call them. They're not the Innocence Project is the wrong name for them. They're looking for an error made in the managing of the prosecution, something where, the detective didn't do this right or something. I forgot the word I'm looking for. So they're not caring about innocence. They were originally an anti-death penalty. Now they seem to be just expanded on that. Technicality projects. That's what I want to say. I wanted to call them the Technicality Project because they're getting people out on technicalities, not on innocence. If they want to push technicalities because they want to hold the feet to the fire of the government to do the thing right, so be it. So call it the Technicality Project, but don't call it the Innocence Project when you could care less whether the person is innocent or not. The double initial murders. I can't remember if I've talked about that case or not, but I do not believe anybody found people with the same initials and killed them. That's just that's one of those things that I think it's one of those coincidences that turns into something you'd have in a fiction story, a Hollywood version of serial killers, that a serial killer will look for people with the same. That's not usually what they're into. So I personally don't think that has anything to do with the actual murders. I have not seen anything about a French architecture journalist. Don't know anything about that. BT confessed, probably so he could spend hours telling all the details in court. I think what happened there was, again, when he talked about the first two crimes, I knew that the details he told were nothing new, and the whole DNA thing is sketchy as hell. And but he committed the other crimes. There's no question about that. But I think that was the deal the prosecution gave him. Hey, you confessed to all of the crimes, including the early BTK things. I think he's a copycat killer. I know he's a serial killer for sure. But I think they wanted him to talk about it in court so he'd be convincing, which he was. And like you say, he had a good time too, you know. Yeah. I would love you to profile someone that runs a YouTube channel, but I'm sure you can't. I mean, somebody with 3 letters and investigates. I have seriously considered doing a show on a number of people, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it without, well, somebody we know is very litigious, and I don't feel like necessarily dealing with the litigiousness of certain people. Do you like the show Dexter? Hate the show. Don't like it. Makes me ill. I think it's a repulsive show and stupid. But because serial killers, the whole premise is just dumb. Let's say as far as the Gus Lamont case, well, the 2 suspects were furthest from the crime, Josie and Jess, and Shannon closest to the crime as she was not involved. Deception. Well, there were 3 people. We don't know when Gus Lamont went missing. Just because Shannon, one of the grandparents, said that he went missing at this particular point in time doesn't mean it's true. The other 2 that were not supposed to be there, we don't know that they actually weren't there. This is something maybe the police know more about, but as far as I know, there's no eyes on Gus Lamont by anybody except those 3 that entire day and the night before. So we don't know when he went missing. We just don't know. Same way as that we don't know when the kids in Nova Scotia went missing either. Just because somebody says they went missing at this time doesn't make it so. A lot of times they'll move the time frame way, way later so that they'll have time to, if something happened, unfortunate happened, they would have time to do something about it. And then call the police later on when they say, oh, it's just happened. So we don't really know. And so I'm hoping they figure it out, but they're saying 2 of them aren't cooperating, which is interesting to me. Let's see. I'm running on to my end of 2 hours here. So let me see here. Well, yes. If you're dealing with 1,000 pages of paper, a single line or even a name can make all the difference. It can. But you have, I'm not saying that people don't look at all this stuff, but the question is, a lot of times they do miss it. It's true. But what are you going to do? I mean, again, if all the stupid psychics call in with garbage and claim it's real when it's not, and I know I have this information for you, and you don't know they're psychics, then you think maybe it's true. You're just wasting the police's time. You get enough people wasting your time. It's the cry wolf thing. You get so exhausted with all the garbage that you might miss the one thing that was important, and that is very true. But it's unfortunate. Oh, do you have a rule of thumb regarding after a certain amount of? We're talking about coincidences here. In an investigation, a closer look is merited. Well, thank you, Roadhouse. Love it. Opinions vary. Absolutely, it's one of my favorite lines of all time. Opinions vary. It's true. It all depends. I mean, there are coincidences, and I've run into coincidences. Somebody said there are no such thing as coincidences. Oh my God, yes, there are. And I've run into investigations like you would not believe the amount of coincidences. But then there's some that you go, okay, now we're getting to the point where can you have that many coincidences all focused on like on one person? Um, uh, Especially if they're a suspect, and yet everything points to them, even though you don't have the physical proof yet, everything else points to them. Then what they become is your number one suspect, a top suspect, somebody worth that solid look. That's all you can do. You focus on them more because the coincidences are too adding up too much, and you hope you will eventually find evidence that then supports that they're actually guilty. That's the best way. Although, yeah, that's the way I would say that. Um, oh, who just did this? I did just see this pop up. Oh, thank you, Molly. That is very nice of you. Aw, thanks, Pat and chat. Great questions and info. I'm glad. Thank you very much, Molly. I appreciate that. Very much appreciate that. And this is a second round of this, and it's actually really kind of fun. So I think I'll do a round 3 just because I think everybody has great questions, and it's actually fun to do. And I know I didn't get to answer everybody's questions. I'm scrolling through, and it's like, again, it's like those 1,000 papers. So people go, I don't know why you didn't answer my question. It's like, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. There were so many questions. I just had to grab them as they go by. So yeah. Okay, I'm not going to comment. I'll stay away from the cultural and political stuff as much as possible. Just because I say people get very bent out of shape. Let's see. I'm over time here. I'm going to try to end this because I need more sleep because that travel really did me in. Which case are we talking about? Oh, thank you, Rosie. I appreciate that. Thanks, Pat, for all your hard work in educating us. I find your YouTube channel very interesting. Glad to catch you live. And I'm glad you're here. I mean, it's yeah. This is always what I hope. I hope that one of the reasons I do this is because I like at the educational part of it. I like helping people understand things because I think a lot of times there's so much out there of nonsense that people don't have a clue, for good reason. What makes sense and what doesn't anymore because of television and YouTubers and a lot of people selling stuff, which is sometimes just anything they can sell on a regular basis every day, 10 hours a day, whatever. And they're not concerned about the truth. They're not concerned about quality. They just have a product to sell. And the product a lot of times is themselves. So you must have missed the Mac part here. What happened to Mac? Let me just show you Mac. This is Mac from yesterday. Came into my room. He sat down. This is him from right before the show. He's eating in my kitchen. So Mac has forgiven me and for going away for 3 months. And more importantly, he got the run of the house for 3 months. And I'm amazed that he even cares. Not that he cares that I'm back, but that he's not mad that I'm back. He seems to be okay with me being back. He seems to remember me, which is kind of cool after, being away for 3 months. I thought he might just forget me. So, so happy to see you looking radiant. I look radiant. must be the filter. Sometimes you all comment on, oh, you look so good today. It's your makeup. No, my makeup's the same every day. The setup's the same. It's either the filter is helping a little bit or the lighting happened to be better than usual. And so, or maybe the tan from Hawaii, I got a little tan. So, you were late and missed the Mac talk. Yeah. Mac is here and I'm happy he didn't get upset when I came. I just was so surprised because last night I took the bowl off the floor. And then I opened up my bedroom door like I used to when he was, regularly coming. And I had my little cat camera on, but just in case I wanted to see if he was still coming in and out. And I'm laying in my bed and I just looked down and there he was standing. He was standing in the doorway and he came in and then he sat down and he came over, he ate, he sat down again. I looked down and talked to him. And then today when he came back in, and well, he was here during the day. I was like, what are you doing here so early? And I put the wet food on my hand and laid down and he licked it off my hand again like he used to. So I guess he's not afraid of me. So that's kind of cool. After 3 months, I thought he might, have to start over at square one. Like, oh, I don't, you're here and I don't want to be around a human. So I'm amazed. So yeah, I'm a little tanned. I didn't spend, I'm not an excessive beach person, but the beach was so close to where I was staying. I could literally walk, took me 10 minutes. I walked down to the Ala Moana Beach Park or to the Hilton Lagoon or to, there's another lagoon there. Magic Island Lagoon, and So those are all to 10 minutes walking for me. And so sometimes I just go down, nice day, which is almost every day, except for during the Kona flooding disaster. I just walk down there and I'd sit down, I'd read a book for 15 minutes. I go jump in and swim around 50 minutes, come out dry, pick up my stuff, go shopping, come back to my house. So it was a real convenient location. So that was really nice. So yeah. Oh, he's Mincy, he's faking nice so you leave again. Maybe he's thinking it's only temporary. Maybe if I just put up with her for a week, she'll be gone again. I can get the house back. It could be. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. If you sent me some money here and I didn't acknowledge it and didn't say thank you, it's because sometimes you just don't see it coming up here, and I don't see it at all, and I don't know why. But if you did, thank you anyway, very much for being kind. And thank you for being here. It's been fun again. I really do enjoy it. And so I'll do I don't know how often I'll do it, but I'll do a round 3. So you can all come back. And if I didn't answer your questions, my apologies, come from round 3. Because again, there's a lot of comments coming in very quickly. So it's only so much I can see. And I scroll through and try to find comments, A, I can answer, and B, that are interesting. So anyway, thank you very much. Oh, Christoph, aren't you nice? She's doing a advertising for me. Thank you, Christoph. Anyway, bye everybody, and I will see some of you on Sunday. That will be a patron only case show, and I haven't decided what it is yet. And Sunday's really soon, but I'll figure it out. I still have time to send me an idea if you want me to cover a particular case. And so I'll be the Sunday show. And if you would like to be there for live Sunday show and you aren't a patron, join Patreon. And that would be great to have you there. And rest of you, don't forget, you can always subscribe to the channel. And I do see comments, and I do sometimes answer those comments. If I see an interesting comment, I will comment on it and respond to you. It doesn't always happen, but I do look at them as when they come in. But sometimes, again, so many I can't keep up. But I try rather than ignore all the comments altogether. So thank you for being here, everybody. Bye-bye.